So let's just start off with just a few, the heart Qigong. So this is great just for sort of straightening the spine, reaching out, bringing the energy into the lower heart, letting it dip down into the belly, into the dantian, and then it comes up, ignites the thymus, which flames up into the head, and then that sprays out like a fountain and cascades all around. So it's a bit like a sort of Chinese alchemy exercise. So European alchemy was all to do with converting base metals into gold. Chinese alchemy is all about converting qi into spirit. Here we're reaching out, gathering the qi from the air, bringing it into the heart and letting it pool and collect in the belly. And then here, a flame licks up, igniting the thymus, reaching up into the head, becoming spirit. Reaching up and just sort of condensing and raining down, really. So the Tibetans have a meditation where they imagine there's like a little container with oil on the top of their head, and there's a little fire in their belly. And a drop of oil just drips down into the fire, and the fire rages with the fuel and comes up. So something is condensing and gathering in the belly, and then a fire rages. And just really stretch the spine as you bring it up. Then one more, and this time just keep the arms out the side when we do the fire bit. So here now, just keep the arms out. So this is now our stick. So what you can do to make it a little bit asymmetrical, which is always a good idea, is just turn one hand over. Then you'll get a sense of movement of energy from one hand to the other, normally towards the hand that's looking up. And then just start turning. And just trying to keep the arms straight. So for that, you have to really direct energy down the arms and out of the fingers. So a sense that what's keeping the arms up is the flow of energy through them rather than the muscles getting rigid in the shoulders. And then just our other exercise where we tilt. So here you can think of something sort of rolling down the arms. like there's a ball that rolls down into the lower hand. And you can sort of turn the hands over. So the lower hand is looking up and then the hands turn over. So to get energy to flow down the arms is all you have to do is just turn the hands over. And let's just try a few more twisting. And then just a few more tipping, but now this time letting the energy flow up. So I tip here, and now it's my top hand that's looking up. So the energy is flowing up the arm. So you just want to feel how your mood is quite different when you have to imagine something flowing up. You need that sort of cheerful optimism inside to allow it to happen. So it's quite different. Okay, and then just reaching up again and just bringing it down. And now let's just do a little bit of work on the belly. So just drawing the belly in. So the advantage of doing these when we're sitting down is that the sitting has immobilized the hips. So we have to use the waist and the belly. We can't move the hips. Not much anyway. So here you're just contracting, pulling the belly in, and then releasing it. So I want to get a rotation. So I pull the belly in and then it flows down the back of my sacrum and under. So I'm getting a rotation in the belly. So the sacrum is actually moving. It's rotating. So I'm drawing in and down and under. Yeah, so this rotation is going on all the time, especially when you're walking. So there's a sense that this is the center that's connecting to the earth. So there's a sense that my sacrum and my tail are cutting into the ground and scooping some of the earth up into my belly. Yes, just really feel the pelvis rocking. And then let it split. So let it sort of start to alternate. So now I've got a sense of a figure of 8 looping beneath each leg like this. So one side of my belly is contracting, and that's getting it to come underneath this leg. And the other side is sort of expanding, which is getting it to come up and in. So I just want to feel that there's a lot of activity inside my body, even though skeletally my body is pretty much immobilized. My legs and my hips aren't really moving. There's a lot of movement going on inside. So this circuit here, it splits into a figure of 8. This is what we want to appreciate. I have to work quite hard. These muscles inside really have to work. So I don't want it, I want to develop this sort of physical mind, not a mind that doesn't just see the thing, a mind that makes the thing, that the mind that makes the energy. So for that, it's a mind that really has to be melded with the body, especially the inside of the body. Okay. And now let's just do the circuit again here. So pulling the belly in and releasing, pulling in and releasing. It's always wanting to sort of split. It's always wanting to wriggle. So you have to wriggle the energy through the passage because it's just difficult to get it to go. And then we just want to, instead of letting it split this way into a figure of 8, we want it to split this way now. So I'm doing the circuit here underneath, and then I just let it come up the spine and over my head. So it's just, I've now got the figure of 8 on the vertical. I always imagine that these sort of wriggly movements are similar to the movements of the snake as it wriggles out of its old skin. So there is that sense of shedding, sloughing. Okay, now let's just sit like we were. Like we're meditating. We want to feel the real difference between the dantian, the belly center, and the head center. John always used to say that his students with the best Tai Chi were the pregnant women. The ones whose dantian was alive, because it was a little growing creature. So this sense that you're pregnant, or you can just imagine that you've got like a sleeping kitten curled up in your hands. And that's just your dantian. So it's a sense of something just sleeping and just being inward. It's rolling in. It's not coming out. It's not awake and conscious. And it just pulls. It's heavy-ish. So it's just settled in your belly, settled in your hands. So there's a sense that you are the child, you are the fetus, the baby. And there's another sense that you are the mother. You are holding, carrying this child, but you're also got this sense of being the child yourself. So there's always the images always work on various levels. And then we want to feel this center. So it's all gone wrong, really, for man since we invented language and we started to use it to think all the time. So what we want is for the head center to basically just be the opposite of this one. So if this one is sort of slumbering and curled up and soft and warm and a little bit sleepy and heavy, it's of earth and of water, the heavy elements, then this is just the opposite. So this should have this sense of being, if this is curling up and furling in, this is like a flower that's endlessly opening up its petals, or like a sun that's gleaming. So the head is where our sense organs are, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the mouth. And so we want this sense that they are sort of listening. They're sort of reaching out, or they're at least right on the edge, so that as soon as information comes in, they're there with it. They're real. So this, like a sort of nervous anticipation, sensitivity, like the nervousness of a wild animal. So there's this, and it's light. It's lifting. It's because it's lighter than the air. So you can think of, those images of Christ where he's just radiating light. So he's got this really handsome face with the long hair and the halo. So in one sense, you're the Madonna, the mother with the infant. And in another sense, you're the Master, the Lord, the Christ figure. And that is lifting upwards. It's starting to levitate, because the spirit is wanting to reach upwards because it's just lighter than everything else. And so this is fire and air, so that the lighter elements. So my material part is sinking, and my spiritual part is rising, is lifting. And then just have the eyes just sort of, I don't know, about this sort of the stick's length really in front. So you're looking at the ground, which is helping the neck stretch. So it's the real top of the crown here. It's not the fontanelle here that lifts up. It's the back of the head, back of the top of the head here, stretching the neck, pulling the chin in. So what we just want to do now is just let the eyes just converge. So just they come together onto a point and sort of hood. So the eyes are almost sort of closing. So what I want to do is just have this little bit of central vision, and the rest is just peripheral vision. So everything else is blurred. There's maybe a little tiny bit in the middle. The point that I'm looking at is relatively clear, but everything else has gone blurry. So I'm producing peripheral vision. And then I just want to have this sense of, at the left side of my peripheral vision, so sort of, you can just use your hand just to find out where it is. I can just about sense the movement here and here. So there's like two sort of shadows, two shadow figures, two sort of energy figures either side of you, aspects of your own energy, I'm sure. And there's a sense that you're sitting here like this, and you can sort of use your energy just to sort of, like you're putting your arms around, like you've got two girlfriends. And so there's part of you that's reaching out and embracing these figures. If I was to look over, I wouldn't see anything. I have to lock my central vision so that these things can appear in the shadowy realm. So there's a lot going on. And the images are rich, and they sort of necessarily conflict. So it just keeps us on our toes. It keeps the system alive and vibrating. This is the problem with meditation. It just does become a little bit stuck. So just getting these internal circulations going. So having the ability to just get these figures of eights generated by these internal wrigglings is quite useful. The left and the right joined up with a figure of eight. We've got the up and the down joined by this figure of eight. Because this one doesn't just go over my head, it really reaches right up and draws the heavens down. And then this one really reaches down into the ground and draws the earth up. And then we also have it on this line, but of course that then involves the other person. So they are part of a figure of eight as well. They are one of the loops and I am the other loop. So we've got the three Cartesian directions. This one here, the one that goes forwards and back, with the times we worked on that one with John, it was, obviously me and the other person that I'm working with. But when you're doing it on your own, it was the past and the future, if you like, or the ancestors. So the ancestors behind you and just bringing them forwards, letting that tradition, that sort of genetic thrust just ooze out of you. But you have to have an awareness of it. So that the iceberg or the guardian were other names he gave it. Okay, so let's stand up. So riding horse. The obvious feature of riding horse is the legs, this sort of roundness in the legs, the fact that the big horse is pushing my thighs out. It's not just gravity pulling me down and me having to counter that by straightening my legs. I'm actually pulling myself down and I'm pushing myself up at the same time. So we just want to feel this, the widening here actually taking me down. So let's just try. Instead of just releasing to gravity and passively just letting it pull me down, I want to be really active. So I really swell with my legs here and just go down, and then I can push against that. It's almost like I'm two animals, this sort of voracious, hungry animal that's trying to get down to the ground and feed. And then I'm this exploring animal that's straightening up against that in order to move around. So here I'm pulling down, and here I'm pushing up. So they're very different, but they're just as active as each other. And then just get the reverse breathing going. So breathing through the small hole and breathing in as you go down. So here I'm not just sucking the oxygen into my lungs, I'm sucking the ground up into my belly. Then here, this is the exhale. And if it's painful, then we just use the pain to drive us into more intensity rather than allowing the pain to be a stimulus for you to chicken out. So if you really go for it, then the pain is just transformed into spirit, into intensity. And now just feel that. It's like you're bouncing on this sort of trampoline of energy. So it's really willing to open up here in order to go down. And now let's try the figure of 8. But rather than going like this, rather than this sort of flat figure of 8 on this plane here, I want it to just go down the leg and up, down the leg. So it's sort of on this plane. One loop is going down, then coming up here, and then the other loop. So now I'm doing the same exercise really, but with one leg at a time. So this leg is really drawing me down and then can push up against that. And then this leg draws me down. So you can imagine you have like these, like a big thick tail, like the size of your sacrum, that comes out and tapers towards the end, and it just reaches down under the foot and then just hooks under here, and then the tail comes down here. And now let's get the figure of 8 just moving on the horizontal plane. Trying to keep the sacrum in the middle, just rotating. So you're not moving side to side too much. When we were sitting down and we were doing this, we couldn't move the hips because we were sitting on the cushion. And so we really felt the internal movement, the sort of twisting and rolling and wriggling that's going on in. So we want the same thing here. It's like the figure of 8 that's going on inside my waist and my belly is much more active than it appears from what you see of the hips moving. And then back to riding horse. And then let's try the figure of 8 on this line. So what I want to do is get this circuit going first. So to get it to come through and reach back, I basically have to stick my bum out, or I have to allow it to roll back, and then I cut it under. So the action is really in the pelvis and the sacrum. But I want to sense that it's not just the sacrum doing this. As I reach back, it's as though the sacrum is allowed to sort of lengthen and straighten, flatten. And then when I pull it under, it's like the sacrum curls up and rolls up a little bit. So here there's a sense of extension. And then here there's a sense of tightening up and rolling up. And again, I just want to really feel the action of the belly that's pulling it under. I don't want it to be tension that I'm introducing in the hips and around the sacrum. I want it to be purely here in the belly that gets my tail to cut under and come up. So it's like I'm just scooping earth up into my belly. Try and get it to feel very similar to how it was when we were doing it sitting down, when we couldn't move the hips, because we want it to be all those internal muscles in the belly and close to the spine. So muscles that don't normally get used, not consciously anyway. And now just the same thing coming under, and now just let it whip up over the head and down. And then again, I'll go back, under, and then whipping back over the head and in, and then tail reaching back, coming under, whipping back over the head. Okay. Yeah, so when we have a circulation going around a circle, around a sort of circular circuit, the movement encourages it to split. So this becomes two. So the one just sort of separates and it just becomes two, so a left and a right. But also the circuit implies a larger figure of eight. So it's not just splitting into a smaller figure of eight. So when I'm circulating here, it's wanting to whip out and then back again. So this is how movement can either reflect upwards or down a scale. And now just meditating, basically. So meditating in riding horse. And just sensing these figures, these shadows either side of you. And now just getting a gentle figure of eight going that includes that. You daren't look at it because you know that if you look at it, it will scarper, it'll disappear. Because you only see these things in your sort of shadowy parts. I just want this sense that there's this large arm of energy coming out of me, the wing, and just wrapping round and including this figure. So this is the same concept really, so when we're working really intensely like this, there's a sense that the figure of 8 is coming in to produce this real tight intensity. But the figure of 8 can equally just really relax and reach out into parts that I'm not normally aware of, but are just as real. So again, it's just a matter of spirit. So the more spirit, the more sort of that sort of tight fighting spirit, the male spirit, the more tight it will come inside, get like getting ready to ejaculate, And then this one is more like the feminine spirit that's just really light and soft and just reaches out into the shadows and just brings in what's there. And this shadowy realm is all around, especially at the back. So that's the back energy, the bit we can't see. So we have to sort of develop like a sensitivity in the back, like eyes in the back of the head. It's like an energetic proprioception, really. So, this arm drifts out. I can't see it. I've lost it now. And so I have to feel it. My body can feel where it is. Yeah, so when it gets light and airy like this, you just got to keep just a sense of the heavy sacrum hanging down, keeping it rooted. Because the problem with the spirit is it will tend to take you out of your root, so you'll become unbalanced. So there's part of you that's just turning away. You daren't look. So that's like the humility, like the bowing in front of the Lord. You don't look. Like in meditation, the more sort of downcast your eyes are, the more the energy can manifest in up here. just letting it become the figure of 8 exercise. And now, instead of doing just one loop of the figure of 8 with each hand, I'm now doing a complete figure of 8 with each hand. So the figure of 8 that I'm doing is the small figure of 8 that's included within the loop of the big figure of 8. So as one hand reaches down the back of the leg and under the foot, the other hand is reaching up the back and over the head. So always cross energy. And then just feeling, where is it in your body? Where's the center of the figure of 8? So it's not really the Dan Qian. It's more like the solar plexus. Okay, so let's so just that breathing with the ground, breathing through the soles of the feet. Yeah, so in the same way, when we were sitting down and we were pretending the arms with the stick, and we're trying to get the arms to remain out and straight because of the intention, the mind that was flowing down them, producing this stream of energy that helps keep them up. It's the same thing here, but now it's the suction here that's drawing the energy up from the ground. So it's not me straightening the legs to keep myself up. I'm bending the legs to keep myself down, to keep myself off the ground, humble. So humus, not the food. Humus, it's just Latin for ground. So humble just means of the ground, literally. So I'm just trying to get down all the time. I just need legs strong enough that can just really let my belly talk to the earth and become the earth, become of the earth. This is the difficult one, obviously, because it's the one that's completely wrong. It's the one that's talking all the time. So I just want that to quieten down. So the function of your mind is to praise God. It's very simple. And you don't have to praise God by saying prayers. You praise God by being awake, by just being with the world that you're in. And so this sense of just really being right on the surface, looking out, you're spilling out all the time from here. And then there's a sense that this is always connecting with the bigger universe. This is always connecting to the earth, to my world, if you like, but this is connecting to the beyond. And they should just take care of themselves. They should, if we were natural, then this would actually be talking to the earth all the time, and this would be talking to God all the time. And then we could reside here where we're meant to reside, in the heart, when the heart is meant to be like the perfect mixture of the head and the belly. And then this is what you use to interact softly and intimately with your world, with the creatures, the things of your world. But of course, because this is wrong, we've lost this connection. And so we can't have this connection, because if you break one, you break the other. So we don't have a root and we don't have a connection to the heavens. And so this is just useless, really. It just doesn't function as it should. So it just becomes this sort of masturbatory circuit of just endlessly talking to yourself. The Pauline imperative, pray unceasingly. In other words, be awake. You're awake not to self, you're awake to the beyond. So it's very much, that's what I love about the religious Jews. It's messianic. The Messiah is always coming. He hasn't come yet. He's always arriving. So they have this open expectation about them. And they know that when he arrives, they're going to have to be happy. Otherwise, he'll pass them by. And so they're joyous. So they have a joyous attitude to the presence that's presenting itself to them. One of them stopped me in the street, a religious guy. I said, sorry, I only speak English. And he says, oh, you Jewish? I said, no. He says, oh dear. Oh dear. He says, I'll give you a name of a website. There's these special exercises that people like you can do, because the Messiah's coming. You know, the Messiah's coming. And I just said to him, he's already been, mate. He's already been. And he laughed and trotted off. So it's quite interesting, that sort of difference between, you know, sort of the Messiah has been and we killed him and he died for our sins and all that shit. And this sense that, it's the next second, it's the next minute, it's tomorrow. So this sense that you always have to be at your best because you might miss it otherwise. So there just is there's no space to be self-concerned, because you know what it's like, you know, when you find yourself, you're sitting there meditating and you realize you're thinking to yourself and you realize you've just completely lost the room. Whilst you've been thinking to yourself, anything could have happened. And so it's that just sense that you're spilling out all the time, you're leaking. Bleeding is the way John used to talk about it, or weeping. Bodily fluids are escaping. So just drawing here. So like the draw of the belly would pull the leg up, but I want to come into this leg, so it's not going to come up. So I am pulled towards it. And then the draw sucks up the other leg. And then I just want to just straighten the legs, but by rolling the sacrum down. Look like I'm trying to do this circuit. I've got this circuit should really be happening all the time. The draw here, the sort of disappearing into itself feeling here. Just imagine there's a clip on YouTube of a slow motion of chrysanthemum just opening up. You know how many petals they have. It's just seemed endless. And I just downloaded it and reversed it. So you got this sense of, it's just all furling in. It's becoming a bud. And then this one's just the opposite. This one is just opening and opening. And it's just like, you know, it happens naturally. It would happen naturally if we led natural lives. Yeah. Great. So let's finish.